The steal by Iverson, posting in. He wins it. He won the game. Be there to say absolutely no. Three from Scott. Yeah, do you love this game?
It is the Sixers Talk podcast with you once again, brought to you by Wilmington University. Wilmu Works. So glad you could be here. Wish it was under better circumstances. We were coming off a painful loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, where the 76ers blew a 19-point lead. 6-game winning streak is kaput. And Doc Rivers, after the game, then called it a throwback to 1989, that type of game where it was just rough and physical. Ben Berry, our producer, co-host here with me as always. And Ben, it was one of those games where the first half, you were clicking your heels and cracking jokes and whatnot. And then overtime, you're biting your nails and Giannis is sitting in the middle of the floor. A lot went on last night. What did you take away from it?
There's so much to take away, and that game is similar to the weather right now. It's just gloomy. It wasn't pretty. Didn't leave me in the best spirits. The Sixers had that big lead, and although it's nice to have that big lead, it's not like they were doing anything special on offense. The Bucks weren't making shots. That was the biggest takeaway I took from that big lead. Then it just fell apart in the second half. I saw what the Bucks did, what I've seen teams do in the past, the Ben. They just walled off the paint and didn't let them get in. I saw that I did like was Giannis and Ben matchup. Ben didn't get pushed around like we've seen in the past, and he slowed Giannis down when Giannis tried to lower his shoulder. So that was very nice to see. But overall, it just was not a great game. It was some positives, some low points. Shake was a low point. Dwight Howard. The Sixers are really getting their bang for their buck with Dwight Howard. That's phenomenal. Tobias dribbling too much, and we're seeing the Tobias are old. That was bad. Furkan, even though he's a streaky shooter, hitting that big three to send it in overtime, great. But I won't get too low in the game the same way I won't get too high.
Yeah, let's take it, compartmentalize some of those things. You mentioned the Bucks not making shots. I felt like that was specifically because of the Sixers defense. Their defense was sick. I mean, they held Giannis to 4 points in the first half. Ben bodying them up, accepting the challenge. Even Tobias, under a few circumstances, handling his business as well. But he was just really, not evident there late in the game where they really needed him. Like, he wasn't making shots, and he wasn't stepping up as we had seen him in past games. So, everyone's due for one of those games. Sixers had a 6-game win streak. The Bucks came in winning 9 of 10. Like, something was going to give between the two teams. I was disturbed by the way the Sixers allowed them to come back in the game. All NBA teams do make a run, but I think when I look at how the Sixers were able to get it to overtime, being at home, have only lost 5 games in the last 2 years at the Wells Fargo Center. This was their 6th loss there. I thought that the overtime would favor the Sixers when it didn't. And, the other points you made about Ben Simmons, this is only a second game back. We gave the other guys on the coming out of the All-Star break a bit of a reprieve to try to get their feet under him. He comes back against the Spurs. They blow him out by 35. He didn't really get an opportunity here. Messed around and got a triple-double, against the Bucks with the rebounds he snagged in overtime. But I think I'm upset because of the way they responded when the chips were down. I was hoping that they would, Seth Curry goes out with the weird ankle injury, trying to make that drive to the basket. So that kind of, exacerbated things a bit. But I think that, it'll be a learning point for them. It comes at a bad time because they're about to go on this West Coast road trip without Joel Embiid, and they come off this loss at home. So it's a bit of a harbinger, maybe a bad news there. But it was one of those games that was a bad, exciting game. They were flopping all over the floor. The ball was, those turnovers were everywhere. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it was one of those weird games where you thought the Sixers might be able to pull it out. But Giannis, man, took over in the OT. He went on a personal 7-0 run all by himself. Dwight Howard hit that weird, 17-footer. And then Giannis hit a 3, a drive to the basket, another bucket as well on that pullback dribble on I think that was on Dwight as well. So, MVP is going to MVP, and we didn't have our best player, and Giannis turned up the gas a little bit, and the Sixers wilted.
They did. So going back to the Sixers defense on the Bucks was definitely good. Shake played phenomenal, practically put the clamps on Chris Middleton. And when
I wish his offense was there, though. They needed his offense. He scored 2 points last game, and this game wasn't quite as efficient shooting the rock. So
when I think of Matisse, I think of that Charles Barkley joke about DeAndre Jordan. You can leave him in the barn overnight and come back in the morning and only have 8 points. Like, that's what I think of Matisse. Like, that's
I thought we were talking about Shake, but Matisse, yeah, that's funny as I don't know what. I think the one I like is that he couldn't hit a bull in the butt with a pound of rice.
Wow.
But, I think and there was a couple opportunities there. Matisse had to jack it up as we shift to Matisse, but him and Shake, you look at the Sixers bench, Shake 7 of 15, but 1 of 3 from 3. There were opportunities there where he could have been like 10 of 15, which would have made a difference in a game like this. The Sixers only lose by 4 points, but Matisse was turning down a few threes I thought he could have taken, where you got guys like Furkan who just, anything close to his shooting pocket is going up. Same with Danny Green. But I don't know. It's a game they should have won. I was hoping that they have a situation here where, they lose the game, but it's a lesson at the same time. But, that remains to be seen and how they respond here as they hit the road.
There's definitely lessons to take from it. Again, so back to Matisse, I like what I saw when he ended up on Giannis. Shake, good player, great 6 man. I think last night was just another example that you can't leave him in to run that second unit. He can get his own bucket, but creating for other people is really a struggle. So whatever the Sixers decide to do at the trade deadline, whether they make a move for somebody, find somebody off the waiver wire, I think that's something we all need to pay attention and watch. And that brings in the Danny Green element, because he's probably the biggest chip that the Sixers would need to move to bring someone in. I think we just at the point where you got to give Tyrese Maxey some run, whatever growing pains that comes with, because the Sixers need someone in that second unit to create in the half court. And there'll be a lot of mistakes, a lot of growing pains. I don't think he'll be 100% ready by playoffs, but it would be better than what they're doing right now.
Well, and then on the flip side of Shake is Seth Curry. So, like, as far as like the minutes wise and that 2-guard position, like if you Seth available, you maybe play Shake less and get him in more opportunities where he's out there with a point guard rather than him having to run the show. So that Maxey point does make a lot of sense, because once Seth got hurt and Ben's out of the game, Shake has to run the show, and that puts him in a situation where he can't play off the ball and come off screens and maybe do like some dribble handoff stuff. So it's just a puzzle that Doc has to figure out. And hopefully part of that puzzle will involve the Sixers making a move at the deadline, March 25th, and bringing in some players via trade, as well as acquiring guys on the buyout market, hopefully. But I think, Shake has 2 points the last game and then comes in this game and goes 7 of 15. It's good because, there's more shots to go around with Joel out. So it makes, Tobias having 30 in the last game and barking, I'm an all-star and all that stuff, that's great. But we need a little bit of that ratcheted up intensity and more of that fever pitch of offensive production because of Joel's absence to make up that void. And I think that's what we're going to find out about this Sixers team on this West Coast road trip as they finish out the month of March without Joel Embiid. And, they just beat the Knicks. So hopefully there's more of that, we beat the Knicks and Ben's never lost to them mojo to carry with them to New York. But it's some exciting basketball to come. So I'm curious to see how they respond.
Exciting basketball. And again, I might have oversold it about the gloomy feeling after last night's game. Doc said those are 2 games from the 80s, and they were physical back to back, and they 5 games over 7 days, I think they're in this current stretch.
Yeah.
remain optimistic, remain hopeful. I'm really intrigued to see what they'll do when it comes to getting someone that else can create and take care of the ball handling duties. I'm not comfortable with Seth doing it because I think that's disservice to the team and him.
Yeah, I feel like, when you look at Sacramento and like they have a true point guard in this new style, you know what I'm saying? This, penetrate and set guys up and, lightning quick and De'Aaron Fox. And, so it'll be interesting to see, because I think that seeing him might show Sixers fans a little bit of the deficiencies that they're working with, not having, Ben being a little bit non-traditional and, not having a backup point guard of that caliber on the bench. Maybe, Maxey does have some of those qualities, but he doesn't play much. But Doc's going to have to come up with something to try to, get them out of this funk where they're, the last two games, they combined the last two games, they scored just over 200 points. Like that's not the modern
with
NBA.
Overtime.
Yeah, right. That's not the modern NBA at all. Like that's just not the blueprint that you're trying to follow. And the blueprint, which, Noah Levick pointed out on the last podcast, is the Spurs game where, they just blitzed them. It was a team effort. There was no one individual. Tobias was the leading scorer, but there was no one individual who, made a huge impact. It was a bunch of guys all, chipping in to make the margin what it was.
That's ideal. That's hopeful. I don't think it's realistic. Doc and the Sixers have 2 days before they play the Sacramento Kings to not fix and solve all their problems. That's not happening. But to start working things out and practice in these off days before the Kings game, we can see that Kings game and see what they'll try differently moving forward.
Start college, build skills, and complete your degree with Wilmington University. 100% online options and affordable tuition make WilMU work for you. Learn more at wilmu.edu.
There's always a game within the game, Ben. And, you got a guy like Giannis who's super prideful and works extremely hard to be as good as he is. And that's evident by him being a 2-time reigning MVP and the success the Bucks have had in the regular season, still to be seen in the postseason. But here, Giannis comes taking over in late in the game and in overtime, particularly. And he hits a shot, which, pretty much was the dagger. And it was over Dwight Howard, if I recall. And he goes after hitting that shot and then sits down in the middle of the court as if like, yeah, I'm the sugar honey iced tea. Enjoy what you're seeing. Sixers fans are in the arena. Like this is like a taboo. Like that's a smack in the face. And then Dwight Howard, who is probably the most unlikely Sixers, he is like embodies the team suddenly. He's like the most, like I saw a tweet last night that said, I can't wait till like outside opens back up and Dwight Howard shows up at Sips. And he's like, I can see it in my head, him walking with like the hair and like the shirt like halfway undone and like a crowd of people just follow him everywhere. But Dwight Howard after the game says he wanted the Stone Cold Stunner Giannis Antetokounmpo in the middle of the court. But when you think about him saying that, you're like, he was kind of in the perfect position for Dwight to come over the top and just like, jump on his head. Two, practically 7-foot dudes going at it like celebrity death match or something like that. But that didn't bother you, Ben? That you didn't like that little showboating, that little showing off?
There's 3 things to it. One, it did not bother me. It did not bother me whatsoever. But I love showboating. I love showing people up. I wish they did more bat flips in baseball and didn't have to worry about getting hit with a pitch in return. I didn't like when the NFL took celebrations away. I don't like when NBA players get text for celebrating. I know you can't taunt and whatever is bad sportsmanship. I found no problem whatsoever with Giannis sitting in the court. And I don't know why most people will find it disrespectful. He sat down.
You understand it. Get out of here.
No, I don't. I don't whatsoever.
People taking the issue.
People look for any reason to be upset and offended, and I think this is one of these reasons. 2, and this goes in every sport. If you don't want someone showing you up, do your job so they don't have to. Dwight, next time, block a shot, foul him and make him go to the free throw line. I don't want to hear you complain and say you want to stone cold stun him after he just hit a shot in your face that ended up being a dagger. 3, realistically, in real life, not the fake world that is, not in the scripted world that is the WWE. I don't want the wrestling fans getting upset with me if they end up hearing this. Don't want to call it fake. But the scripted world, in the real world, a stone cold stunner might be the worst thing to do to somebody because it's not going to hurt them whatsoever. Why not go with a rock bottom?
A rock bottom, maybe a tombstone.
Yeah,
I thought
DDT.
As I think back on it, a DDT, yes. As I think back on it, though, he was more in perfect position for an RKO. You know what I'm saying? Because you just come and just grab the head and just boom. You know what I'm saying? Which also
2 big dudes for an RKO,
but also does nothing at all. Like he's not ever going to be hurt from something like that. But you know what? But it's to me, it's like, you know, Steph Curry hits the 3 on you, and then all of a sudden he's doing the high step and the shimmy and the shoulders and the back head. Like, oh, hold up! Like, that kind of stings. That makes the 3 that you hit, the shot you hit, sting a little bit more. So, to me, you know, obviously Giannis is feeling himself. He hits this shot, and then like his celebration is like a muted, like, look at me thing. I can see, you know. Doc Rivers had the comparison, like this is like 2 back-to-back 1989 basketball games with the games they played against the Knicks and then, you know, last night against Milwaukee. Like, if it is a throwback to that time, where's Charles Oakley to come and like be the enforcer?
To the chest.
Yeah, something, you know what I'm saying? So but great point by Dwight. They play the Bucks 2 more times here in April, a back-to-back in late April. So they play them the most out of any teams here in the second half. And
both games in Milwaukee, I believe, too.
Yeah. One of those weird back-to-backs. I forget what they're calling them this year. But they're in this situation now where they're tied with Brooklyn at the top of the Eastern Conference. These next, you know, games to end out the month of March are going to be before Joel comes back, hopefully, and when he gets reevaluated in a couple of weeks. They're going to mean a lot, man. You know, we had talked about, you know, maybe a 5-3, you know, end of the month, maybe a, you know, 6-2 on the light side, on the bright side of things. Maybe they can pull that off. But I just, you know, you look at the way Dwight responded. I think that was the proper way because it sets a tone. You know, other teams are going to hear that. Milwaukee's going to hear that. And, you know, you're not going to be out here, you know, showing us up and you know, what are they, you know, Cadillacing around, acting like, you know, you're the big Mahaf. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with that if you're on the team. If Dwight would have only said that to the locker room, cool. We're complaining about it afterwards in any other sense.
He was asked.
Because my thing is, I know they're on your team, but keep the same energy when guys pound their chests, when Tobias yelled that he should be an all-star, when Joel Embiid is doing the shake and getting the crowd into it, whether they're home or away, realize other teams are going to react the same way. So just bring that same energy. Be prepared for other teams that want to take your head.
Man, an exciting game, and it had all the bumps and bruises that we've mentioned so far. But as we you know, zero in a little bit closer on how players performed, you know, it's interesting. Tobias Harris had been on a tear. I mean, you go back to the Utah game in overtime up until last night, he had been on a tear. You know, we talked about in the last podcast with Noah about, you know, he's got a bounty out on all these coaches who, you know, didn't think that he was worthy of being on the All-Star roster. But here against the Bucks in the game, the Sixers needed his production and that high caliber of play that he had been giving them. He didn't rise to the occasion. You know, comes 8 of 23, was a bit cold from the floor. You know, 1 of 4 from 3. No one on the team was able to get to the line like that. And, you know, you were hoping that Tobias, you know, every player is going to hit a rut, but at the same time, you know, this is a game against an Eastern Conference foe that's chasing you down, that you needed him to be more than what he was. And is that something the Sixers fans should be disappointed in, or is just, you know, it is what it is?
Yeah, they should be disappointed. And I know now, once we started, I know why you picked this topic. So it could just get me on, and you can call me a Tobias hater, and everyone can just get in my mentions, and I gotta get emails and
I'm not
messages
thinking
from our
that deep.
coworkers. That's exactly what you did. No,
What?
Tobias has been having a great year. He looks like the player the Sixers wanted. Whether you still think he's overpaid or whatever, that's a different conversation. He's had a phenomenal season so far. Some missteps, but last night against the Bucks, we saw all the flaws that was his game last year and the year and a half before when he was traded here. When Doc became the coach, performances like last night against the Bucks was explicitly what he stated what he wanted to keep Tobias away from. Pounding the ball, just meandering, taking contested fadeaway jumpers, not driving to the basket. That's what Doc said he didn't want Tobias to do. And that's what we got. And if you don't have many other creators, and it seems like Ben Simmons is the Sixers' only true creators, that's what happens. And with Seth Curry and Danny Green having bad to okay games, and yes, Seth had the ankle injury, that's what we're going to get out of Tobias. Pounding the ball in, contested jump shots. He can't create. That's not his job, and nor should it be. So I would not be happy about last night, but it might be an overall effect of the roster around him.
Well, you look at the Sixers currently without Joel, their second and third options are Tobias and Ben. I just did some quick math, and they go a combined 14 for 39, the two of them last night. That ain't going to cut it. But the all in all, they were still in the game. But, rising to the occasion is one thing, but just giving us what you normally give us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you come out with a 30-point performance against the Knicks, but then, here against the Bucks, you slide back a little bit. Even just giving us the regular 20-point, 22-point performance would have been, and the efficiency that goes with it would have been just fine. Just, just being status quo. But, they come out and, the Sixers are cold a bit from the floor, and the Bucks were even worse. But the Sixers weren't able to stave off that run that they made. And I don't know if I look at Tobias and think like, man, like, you could have done this better, or there were a couple of possessions where he could have played better. He just wasn't getting the ball or making any type of impact. There was one like fast break three that he threw up when the Sixers needed a three late in the game. But, it was like too little too late at that point. Ben Simmons did hit a three worth noting. It looked good. I don't know why he doesn't shoot it more, but we can't waste any more time on that. But I'm willing to give Tobias a pass on last game. I was a little disappointed because they played so well at home and had so much momentum on a 6-game win streak. You thought that was a game that they, Doc Rivers would orchestrate them to, pulling that one out, and they would show some pride, in front of the home fans. But it didn't turn out that way. But I'm willing to, give him a pass and see how he responds against Sacramento.
What's frustrating is he's still the Sixers' best half-court offensive option.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So if he can't get it started and get it going.
You mean, of course, without Joel. Without Joel.
Without Joel. Like, I don't know where else you go to for someone to create shots. And
that's part of the problem. I'm not to interrupt you, but Shake, like, come on. Like, you get 2 points against the Knicks, and like in this game, you weren't, difference making, you know what I'm saying? As far as like the sixth man with the punch that comes off the bench with the energy, Shake has got to find his way, and people are waiting for him to blossom more. Same with Matisse. And then you got Maxey and Mothballs. So there's something there that needs to be like meted out. Like they need to like figure out this bench and rotation thing. Sometimes I think Danny Green's getting too many shots. So but there's more obviously with Joel there. But there's something that needs to be like, there's something needs to be navigated. I imagine like a chemistry mixture where like pouring little bits of this and that into like a beaker, and then like trying not to make it explode or something like that. But they need to figure it out.
It's a team filled with secondary players that is desperately missing the MVP, their MVP.
You hanging it on thick.
It's not hanging it on. It's just honest truth.
Well, I mean, hopefully these $100 million dudes, Ben and Tobias, are more than secondary players. Seth, I think the COVID thing, man, he's just been snake bitten with the COVID thing. Hits him hard. He finally gets his legs under him. He twists his ankle. It's like more and more. You look at the situation last night, and we talk about Tobias and whatnot. Kyle Lowry, a guy like that in a game like that, I feel like he pulls out a winning play or makes a winning decision.
So you mean a flop?
Draws a charge, maybe. I mean, sometimes in a game like that, in a scrappy, dirty, physical game like that, there's something to be said for that. And he's a shot maker, creator. So
that game, the game against the Bucks is right up Kyle Lowry's.
Oh yes,
right up his alley. Even though I'm joking about the flop thing, well, jokingly truthful opinion. It would be nice to have him.
He's been in more of those situations than Ben. He's been in more of those scrappy games than Joel.
Hypothetically speaking, if the Sixers trade for Kyle Lowry, realistically, that means they're giving up Danny Green, right?
Yeah.
So and Maxey. So
for a 1-year deal.
For half a season.
Less than half.
Half of a shortened season.
Right.
So I guess you're staggering Kyle and Ben's minutes?
I'm thinking he'll want to re-sign here, so I don't really hang on the 1-year thing. Yeah, how does it fit? Great question. We talked a little bit about that in the last podcast. I think Seth Curry will have to go to the bench, is what I think will happen. So, and then maybe put Matisse in the starting lineup.
That's bold.
It is, but you gain Lowry's shot creation, and he can make threes as well. Matisse makes up for Danny Green's defense a little bit.
So you moving Ben to back, moving him off the ball again.
Well, they would be in the backcourt together, the way I see it.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I think you could move Ben to the 4 and have Seth Curry and Kyle Lowry in the backcourt together, and then put Tobias at the 3. I don't know. But a player of his caliber makes a difference. Let the coaches figure out how the lineups work. But
the basketball people.
Yeah, I feel like being in a player like that elevates you in a lot of ways that you don't currently have. Is it a risk? Yeah. Do you lose a little bit? You do lose a little bit. But are we winning the championship? Are we trying to win a championship? Are we just getting close? It's one or the other. But something has to be done. It remains to be seen what that will be. Kyle Lowry, interesting name, particularly with the Bucks. Fred VanVleet still having issues with COVID-19. They might just be bagging it up. Like if they don't think they can beat the Bucks or Brooklyn or even the Sixers, like they might just pack it in and try to retool for next season. So it's interesting. I think Lowry will make a difference. I can see both sides of it, but I think a player that, you look for a game like last night, though, like you said, that was right up his alley.
That's his game. I imagine Kyle Lowry in the offseason plays pick up basketball in high top black Air Force 1s or 10s. That's the type of game he has. I'm okay with it. Like, I'm definitely okay with the move. I'm intrigued on how they would make it work. Like, what's the lineup? What is the rotation? That's all. I'm not doubting it or just questioning out loud, processing.
But
how
I think we can
make that work.
Agree on this, that it can't just be Lowry. It has to be another bench guy, whether it's someone who's a shooter, a shot maker. They need to change. They shoot 41 threes last night, which is much better than what they normally shoot, like 28, 27, 29 threes a game. So that is the extra clip of 3-point shooting kind of elevates their ability to stave off the people who were trying to chase them down in a game where they build a lead, because they can also hit threes as well to kind of build their lead. So I look at it like there's an opportunity, and I'm just, we're all, March 25th, just waiting to see what Daryl Morey does. So I think more than one player, though, is what they need. It is just a Lowry. They need to kind of bolster the bench as well. So they kind of need to finesse this trade market and buyout market all at the same time.
I agree. It'd be nice to have a legitimate option as a backup power forward. They need someone else.
Yeah, they lost out on PJ Tucker, another guy.
Lost out on PJ Tucker.
Yeah.
I know, 3-4 weeks ago, I threw out Blake Griffin when it was clear the Pistons were moving on from him. And I'm not looking for Lob City Blake Griffin if the Sixers would have picked them up. I know that's not what the Nets getting. Just someone else that can create and give you a solid 8 points off the bench. That's
and PJ Tucker, the dude they will now have to deal with the next time they see the Milwaukee Bucks, because he's coming to the Eastern Conference. So the ball's in your court, Daryl Morey. Something's got to be done. There are some moves out there to be made, though. And Zach LaVine was a name that Mark Jackson from Sixers pre and post mentioned to me when we were having a discussion. He feels like there's some momentum toward that. So I don't know, man. I'm kind of antsy right now. This month of March will tell a lot. The Sixers could be, still tied for first or in first place, or all the way down to fourth or third, depending on how this shakes out. So
I would love a move for Zach, but I will also love $1 million. I'm not going to get too hopeful and think it's going to show up on my doorstep in the morning. We'll see what Daryl Morey does. I have confidence in him. When the Sixers signed him to be president of basketball operations, fully committed, fully open to whatever Daryl does moving forward.
A 1.5 lead over the Milwaukee Bucks do the Sixers. They are tied with the Brooklyn Nets at 28-13, but currently hold the third tiebreaker of division record. So it's getting tight at the top of the Eastern Conference. Be sure to keep it here with the Sixers Talk podcast for all of the information, insight, perspective, thoughts, and opinions. Hey, keep those 5-star ratings coming. We appreciate your input and how you guys seem to just really let your feelings be felt out there. So as always, welcome here with the Sixers Talk podcast. For Ben Berry, our esteemed co-host and producer, I am Danny Pommells. Thank you for listening. We're brought to you by Wilmington University. WilMU Works. We'll see you next time.